Welcome back to the studio. I'm continuing work on this commission, and today in this session I am working on the pair of cardinals perched up here on the birch tree on the limb, and the birch leaves just serve to frame both the bird and the crescent moon, just as a nice little design element up there, and they just kind of just bring your eye right to the birds and the moon. And so now I'm working with, going to do the male, start on him. This is a mixture of cadmium red deep plus alizarin crimson. I've washed them in first with a mixture of my mud, which is 2 parts of ultramarine blue and 1 part of alizarin crimson, and liquid. And that now is dry, so I can start coming back and working on the birds. I have that initial wash in, so the canvas is covered. I don't get any little white spots showing through. Now, this is a mixture of some of my leaf color plus a little bit of cadmium red medium, or cadmium red deep, excuse me, plus a little bit of green from the leaves. And that just dulls the red a little bit. If you ever see cardinals, even the males, the feathers on their back are not as brilliant as the feathers on their chest and their heads. And then I like to, even though the tail feathers are not usually this bright, I like to bring a little of extra color into them, just to accentuate our cardinals. I love cardinals. Jack did too, and we have several feeders at our home. We have one right outside our kitchen window. And I love it when I just come around the corner into the kitchen and Mr. Chippers is out there feeding. He's just really special to me. Jack always used to love him. We had his computer desk set up, and there's a feeder outside of that window too. And Jack could just sit there and work. And I'd many times see him just there when the birds were at the feeders. He'd just be sitting there watching the birds. It was just super delightful. And now I'm using a little bit of cadmium red light just to bring a little color and brilliance onto his head and shoulder. Again, the feathers here are a little bit duller. And then I'm using a little of my mud mixture to just darken a little bit of these feathers here. It's dusk, so he's not quite as brilliant, but I still want a little bit of bright color on him, just to say I'm a cardinal. And he's going to have a little, just bright, right here from the light from the moon. And then his mask is, I'm just using let me use a little bit smaller brush here. This is my mud mixture again, and I'm just using that for his mask. And his beak is some of my leaf color from my birch tree. This is a little bit of mud plus cadmium orange plus a little bit of my cadmium red light with white mixed in. I've saved my sky colors so I can come back and just shape his beak a little bit. Oops, there's too much paint on my brush. This brush is about the only brush I use that is not one of my bright square-ended brushes. This is a round. It's a number 4 round, and this allows me to get a nice point so I can get my detail in here. Now the female is not as bright as the male, Her crest has more red in it than the rest of her body, so I'm using cadmium red deep here on her crest. But then her body gets duller. So I've mixed a little mud plus a little bit of my leaf color and a little bit of green into her body, just to dull it. In fact, it even comes into an almost a brownish. And I use some of my mud to make my darker. That's too dark, but I can just paint over that with my lighter mixture, and that gives me the right shade. She's darker on her back. He's got his back to us, but she's nestled with her tail on the other side of the branch. So we see more of her chest and breast. And she's lighter here. And almost a soft little brown, little tan. Now I'm going to put her feet in here because we see her clasping the branch. Come back with my branch color. This one I got a little bit wide. Toes out there. And extend over, yeah, there we go. Now I'm going to use this brush to, actually I'm going to use my round. I want to soften her into the sky a little bit. She's just a little bit hard here. The edges are just a little bit hard. So this paint is still wet back here, so I can just soften this edge. And that just softens her. It's cold, a little bit chilly, and so she's a little fluffy. So we just want her a little bit softer. Now I'm going to do her beak. Again, the same mix I used for Mr. Chippers. We're using on Ms. Chippers. Their beaks, they're meeting. And then her mask. His mask a little bit bigger there. In fact, I need to make his head just a little bit bigger. Don't have him quite big enough. Make his crest up. There we go. And her crest needs to be a little bit bigger too. A little bit bigger. Not much. There we go. Now I want to soften him a little bit too. Soften him into the... Just come back with my... This is some cadmium red deep on the back of his neck. And then I'm going to do my cadmium red light, just a little bit of accent right in here. The moon is catching him. So there's our cardinals. A pair of cardinals, Mr. and Miss Chippers. That's what Jack called them. Just because they always chip, chip, chip when they're coming in. You can always hear them out at the feeders because you hear that little chip, 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 which was always neat. A lot of times I'll hear them and I'll just take a little break and go watch the cardinals. God just brings them You know, it seems he always brings them just at the right time. I need a little lift. And I walk around the corner and I see them there at the feeder, and it's like, oh my goodness, they bring me such joy. So I really appreciate you watching my YouTube videos. Thank you so much. If you ever have questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. And you just have a wonderful, wonderful day. Please visit my blog. The link is in the description below. The address is also on the final frame of my video. You can subscribe to my blog and you'll get an email every time I make a new post. So you can follow my paintings step by step. So you have a great day, and thank you again.